All right. I believe I am live on YouTube. I am using my MacBook versus my tripod and my iPhone, hence the different view and maybe slight reduction in quality. I'm not sure. Hopefully the audio is working. I'm sure someone will tell me here momentarily if it's not. Um, Put out a video just a couple days ago in regards to how record stores go about acquiring large collections. And it's a topic that I get a lot of questions about, which is why I did the video. And then, as usual, once the video goes live, the conversation starts, and I've gotten a lot of good comments and feedback and additional questions on the topic. And so I figured I would do a little live stream Q&A, and we'll see if we can get anybody on to participate. But even if not, this will go on the channel and will be archived. And so I'll end up, answering these questions hopefully for people who can watch it on demand versus live. But I'd love some additional live questions. I've got two or three topics or questions, I should say, that I got that I thought were really interesting, and again, stuff that I just didn't have time to go through in detail on the original video, or things that I just forgot. And then when I got the questions, I was like, man, I definitely need to go back and unpack that a little further. So, if you have any questions on the topic, obviously feel free to put in the chat. It's just now 1 o'clock Central on this Thursday, September 1st. So, we're going to give people just a few minutes to join. Hey there, Bowie, Texas. Bowie, Texas. I don't know where Bowie, Texas is. Let's look that up. I'm curious, see if I can beat you. Bowie, Texas. Let's see. It looks like you are, okay. Yeah, you're a little northwest headed towards Wichita Falls. Cool. Thanks for joining. Can't say I've ever been through Bowie, Texas, although I've been to Wichita Falls, so maybe I went through it. But all right, so we're gonna kick off here shortly. I'm seeing a few questions coming in, which is awesome. I'm just gonna give people another minute or two to join, given that it's just now a minute after the hour. Thanks for the question, David. I will get to that, of course, for sure. Regrets of collection buys. Yes, there have been some of those for sure. Um, let's see any other questions. So let me go through. So I'll start fielding a few audience questions, kind of as they come in, and then, like I mentioned, I have a few topics, or a few questions that came in on the comments of the original video. So I will definitely tend to those as well. So first and foremost, let me go ahead and tackle a few audience questions while some more people are trickling in. We've just got a handful of people watching, which again is totally fine. So David asked, do you have customers who collect specific titles, artists, and ask you to keep an eye out for them? Appreciate your videos. Thank you, David. Yes, all the time. And in fact, it's one of the greatest part of owning a record shop. Honestly, the greatest parts is being able to like super serve people. But you have to be careful because, as you guys know, um, I'm very transparent and, most importantly, accessible. Meaning, if you want to email me or message on social media, like, I would say 9 out of 10 times I'm the one that's going to get back with you. So it's definitely a slippery slope as far as people saying, "Hey, can you keep an eye out for this?" or "Hey, when you get any of this in, can you hit me up?" And a lot of times I usually just respond and say I'll do my best, because that's typically what I'll do. And then a lot of times what I'll do is I have a note on my phone, where I will put a running list of things that people are looking for, because most of the times what I do is then I'll go to my storage units, which is where I have all my pre-owned vinyl. If I have it new, I'll usually run and just retrieve it right then. But if it's not something I have in front of me, I'll go to storage and I'll kind of consult that list and go, oh, what should I be looking for? Maybe I'll find something. Oh, I found, this Leonard Skinner record or whatever it is that someone had asked about. So I'll try and reciprocate as much as I can there. So yeah, I do my best, but it definitely is hard to keep up with as the shop in NTX is scaling and got a lot more customers. So all right, next question. Have you ever bought a collection, you then regretted it after you went through it all? I guess the honest answer is probably yes. Although, regret's a strong word. There's been a few collections that I've bought that I wish the condition would have been better, and it was a bit deceiving up front because again, you just don't have the time to look through all of the albums or even a portion of the albums. And it can be deceiving based on the condition of the jackets, which is a lot of times what you're making your offer on because you can't pull every record out. You spot check as many records as you can. In fact, my son Ben, who's 12, he's been going on dig with me for probably 5 years, and he comes with me a lot these days, especially just because he's my spot checker. Meaning, I say, Ben, just go through, start going through boxes, and anything that's a tier one. And by tier one, I mean Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, David Bowie, Otis Redding, right? Top tier artists, top tier titles that sell for whatever, 15, $20, $30 and more. Typically he will go through and start spot checking. And if he sees, records that are really scratched up or really dirty or stuff, he'll kind of flag me, and that tells me I need to take a little closer look. I just tell him, hey, if everything looks clean, just put them right back, keep them in order, keep going, and then just like tell me if you find anything that's a red flag. Um, so uh, yeah, to answer the question, yeah, there's been a couple that I've regretted, mainly really larger collections that I just kind of took a shot on, and I didn't overcommit monetarily, but I still hoped things would have been better condition wise because that's really when you're buying pre-owned collections, so much of it comes down to condition. So all right, moving down the line. Do you like Gorillas? They have a new album dropping soon. I don't dislike Gorillas. I just don't listen to it a lot, but I sell a lot of them. That Demon Days album is one that sells like crazy. I can't ever keep in stock, and I really appreciate what those guys do. It's just not really my cup of tea. So, but yeah, I'm sure if they got a new album dropping, I'm sure I'll have it in stock for sure because I get asked about it all the time. Let's see, Ramiro, what is your take on the MoFi problem? Oh my gosh, we may have to come back to that. Do you recommend? Let's see. What is my take on the MoFi problem? My take on the MoFi problem is that people have too much time on their hands, and it's a whole ton of first world problems. That's what it is. Because I've got a whole cube of MoFi records that I have bought new and used over the years, and the vast majority of those records are still, believe it or not, the best sounding albums in my collection. A ton of them are. If I did a top sounding albums in my collection list, I guarantee you half of that would be made up of MoFi or at least a handful. Um, so that's my take on it. Is like just it's this is what happens on social media these days. There's one little thing, and it just catches fire, and then people go nuts with it. I've purposefully stayed out of the MoFi thing because one, I'm not an audiophile. I've never claimed to be, and honestly, I have no goals of being an audiophile. I'm here for the love of the music, regardless of format, regardless of all the very specifics. Did MoFi screw up? Yes, MoFi screwed up. Should they pay for it? Probably, and they are. I guarantee you, reputation is everything, especially when you're in a really small niche business. So it's going to be real interesting to see how MoFi's business evolves, if any, especially in regards to their price point, because I think that's really what most people are sticking on. It's not so much the quality of the albums now. It's like, why were we paying $125 for a one step MoFi album when in reality it wasn't as difficult to source as you said it was, when in reality that's probably not true. They're just using the best technology they have, which includes a digital step in that process, to produce the best quality product. I don't have any firsthand information, but I, based on what my ears tell me, it's quality product. So that's where I sit on MoFi. All right, I'm going to keep going down these. The Lucas Show. Do you recommend albums to customers at the shop? Absolutely. Recommend stuff all the time. I've been wanting to do like a staff picks thing. We do that on our newsletter already. That goes out to everyone who's on the email list. And then we definitely have talked about doing staff picks and recommendations and things like that in shop too. So yeah, that's definitely fun. Let's see. Sub 4 Mile. Love the videos. I own a small record shop in Iowa. Cool. Do you use a basic scale to make your offer? For example, a $5 record, you pay one, a $10 record. Kind of. Every dig is different. Every collection you acquire is different based on the size and based on the quality and based on the condition. So some people will come to me and they have something in mind already that they want. Sometimes it's spot on and I'll take it. Sometimes they're way off and we have to engage in a long conversation, or maybe it ends right there because we're too far apart. I can usually tell based on how the conversation's going if it's going to be worth it in the long run. Um, but yeah, I mean, stuff that I can sell for $3 to $5, like I've got to get that for pennies. Like, I can't pay $3 for a record that I'm going to turn around and sell $5 on, because I have to, you know, my time is the most important thing here, the most critical thing that I have to value. Beyond the time, there is a sleeve, there is someone who has to clean it, there is a price sticker, all these things which cost pennies, but when you add them all up, it costs a lot. So yeah, so if I'm seeing records that I know sell for $3 to $5, which is a pretty common, what I consider to be making a little more bargain bin, because I don't do like dollar records. I don't do 25-cent records. Like, I try not to even sell those. Most of that stuff I donate. Um, but yeah, the albums that sell for $3 to $5, I'm looking to buy those for a dollar or less. Stuff that I see that I know sells for 10 to 20, I'm happy to pay $3 to $5 for that if I know I can sell it for 10 or 15, and again have a little bit margin and room built in. So, but it really does vary. Um, all right. Have you bought? Good question. Thank you. Ganzi says, "Have you bought any collection based on Discogs entry and valuation? If so, what do you base your price? Low, higher, medium?" This is a great question, and this is one that I did fail to mention. And someone had commented on the original video, and they said, "What?" And this is a similar scenario where they said, "What do you do when someone has their whole collection logged in Discogs? Is that good or bad?" Well, first of all, I tell them thank you, because it makes it so much easier. Because if I just say, "Hey, send me your link," or even better, download your Discogs collection, if you're looking to sell the whole collection, obviously, and downloads to a CSV file, which then I can open up on my own time and manipulate it, meaning I can sort it and go through and highlight it and do things with it that will enable me to make an educated, decision and or offer. In regards to price, so to me, on most albums, and I'm generalizing, most albums, the median value on most albums, generalizing, is pretty much the retail value. Meaning, if you've got an album and the low is 10, the median is 25, and the high is 50. 25 is usually around retail. I'm generalizing, of course. Um, so what I tell people is when they send me their Discogs list, I say, "Hey, I'm going to sell," generalizing, "around that median value." And so I can't buy at that median value. When I grade and I price pre-owned records, I'm looking at a strong VG plus of a typical title. If the median value is around $10, I bet I'm pricing it for around $10, give or take. And so if someone gives me their Discogs and they say, "Hey, what will you offer me for this collection of 1,000 LPs?" And they show me the median value is, let's say, $10,000. I can't offer you $10,000. I've got to figure out somewhere between that low and median. Usually, I would say about 50% of the median, but that varies based on the size of the collection. Because if I'm only buying 50 records, that's way different than 5,000 records. The labor involved, the cost, time wise, and exponentially the cost to just manage that inventory and get it all priced and get it all sold. There's a big commitment there. And so I look at, again, each collection differently. If it's 50 records and I've got a Discogs list, I may pay $20 a record. I've done it. I've paid more than that per record on smaller, really curated, collectible type stuff. But when it's, I would say 500 or 1,000 records or more, the whole conversation changes. And I'm going to get into that with an. That's part of the reason I want to do this video was specific to that topic, right? So, um, yes, I agree. MoFi is paying by having to lawyer up. I think they're paying more with bad press, though. It's going to hurt them in the long run because of this. All right. Would you encourage collectors to pursue OG copies of albums, original presses of albums, which tend to be more expensive, or audiophile reissues? That's a great question, David. And it's really a personal preference. I know so many people over the years who have told me like they really just go for original presses, which I completely get. I'm not that person 100% of the time, but I love the nostalgia of the vintage pre-owned copy that came out in 1978 or whatever it may be. That being said, there's a lot of good reissues coming out. Are there bad reissues coming out? Yes, but there's a lot of good ones too, especially when you get into audiophile territory with Analog Productions, with yes, Mobile Fidelity, with I think music on vinyl, even though it's not audiophile grade. There's still some great reissues being put out. Tone Poet, there's a lot of great labels putting out records, and so there's something to be said for the advancement of technology and the pressing plants and the mastering process and everything that goes into that. The fact that it's so much more advanced than it was now than it was even 10 years ago and certainly 50 years ago. So I think that's a gut call based on the album, based on what your preference is. So let's see. I've got a couple more questions coming in. I see your questions, Guy, and I'm gonna take a stab at that. But one of the questions which I thought was most interesting, and I alluded to it because it related to the above ones I was answering about Discogs. Someone asked me in response to the video about, oh, I see. So if there's a collection of 1,000 records and, they're all curated and all, let's say, valuable. When I say valuable, I mean 20, 30, $50 and up, right? You're just going to offer pennies for that? And here's the answer. First of all, I know you're feeling because I'm sitting in front of it. Like I've got one of those collections where I've got several thousand albums that's very curated. There's very little what I would say um, filler in my collection. So I've been there. But here's the issue. If you've got 1,000 record collection and you know that all of these albums are worth $50 and up, let's say on average, some maybe hundreds, some maybe 25, whatever. Um, and you're like, I want to get out of this, I want to sell it, you're kind of stuck. Honestly, I'm stuck. There's no way. I was just looking it up earlier. The median value on my collection, which I'm looking at on my phone. You probably can't see it, but you can just go to NTX Vinyl on Discogs, and you can see my personal collection, which is separate from what I sell. The high is $166,000. The median is 75,000, and the low is 36,000 on my personal collection that I'm sitting in this room. If I wanted to sell this collection, do I think I could get the median value, $75,000? Do I think I could even get 50% of the median value? If I sold it in bulk, who the hell's gonna buy it? There's no record well, I'm sure there are a few record stores. There are very few small, normal record stores that can shell out 25 grand cash, 50 grand cash on some huge collection. It's not because I may look at the collection and go, and not know what you got. The whole thing. Oh, I know what I got. Yeah, you know what you got, but do you know that you're stuck with it? Because it's so valuable, it's unsellable in bulk in most scenarios. And again, I'm gonna be in that spot if I didn't have a record store and wasn't already planning to pass all my stuff down to my kids, hopefully. But what I'm saying is there's a certain point where record stores their hands, our hands are even tied. Certainly a personal collector is going to shell out 10, 20, $30,000 for a record collection just for themselves. Like, hey, you got that cash flow personally, good for you. I don't. And I certainly don't for NTX Vinyl as well. So someone may come to me with 1,000 albums, amazing collection, all very valuable. And they say, I want $25 a pop. You can sell all of these for $50, $75, $100, make great profit on these. I'll say, great. I don't have 25 grand cash. Like, I guess I could go take out a loan and risk my whole business. But, how long is it going to take me to recoup all of that? I guess I could do it, but that's just an example. Maybe it's not 1,000 albums. Maybe it's 5,000 albums. And then it's certainly out of the question. So much of it comes down to cash flow is what you have to understand. If you've ever run a business on any level, like that's a thing. And that's what I'm constantly managing. When I go look at all these collections, I'm looking at one collection going, hey, I'd like to make an offer here, but I know next week I've already got 2 more appointments. And if I burn up all my cash flow right here, then I'm taking a chance that these other collections that I haven't seen yet, maybe they'll be better, but then I won't have the cash flow to be able to buy them. And they've all told me they'll only sell in bulk. So it puts the buyer in a tough spot. And really, it puts the onus back on the seller. That's the thing that most people don't understand is, hey, you got 1,000 records, you want $25 a pop? Good luck. Like, how many people, how many shops, certainly not personal collectors, but even shops can afford that? The reality is that seller needs to go back to the drawing board and go, you know what? Let me piece these out. Let me put all the jazz in one bundle. Let me put these artists' catalogs in another bundle and try and help some buyers actually be able to afford this stuff. Like, that's my point of view. It's like, because I just can't afford to buy the whole thing at once. And so once you get to a certain point, volume wise and value wise with your collection, your options are really limited. And I've talked to people a lot like this who've been collecting for way longer than me and have larger collections than me. And they're like, yeah, I know I'm going to die with it because I'll never be able to sell it. They can't bring themselves to sell it at bottom dollar, you know, dollar record, $5 record, $10 record. But the reality is they've got so many of them and they're so valuable. Like, that's the only option because most people simply can't afford to spend that much money on a whole collection. So again, that's why record stores a lot of times end up getting a great deal because they're the only damn option that people have when the collection is that valuable and that large. So that was one of the questions I thought was a great topic that I didn't get addressed. All right, I'm going to get back to questions. Guy, you were next. I recently bought a Led Zeppelin album from you. Yes, the International Pop Festival. The disc label says recorded live at Shoreline Amphitheater. Do you know? That sounds like a misprint to me because it definitely was not recorded at the Shoreline Amphitheater. Hit me up if there's an issue with it. Does it play it? The copy I have, I know exactly which one you're talking about. It's right here. Hold on. This is Texas International Pop Festival by Led Zeppelin. I've actually and you're saying it says recorded at Shoreline Amphitheater? Weird. I don't know. Mine does not say that. It's just a normal, you can't read it. I think it's backwards. But no, hit me up if there's an issue with it, man. Otherwise, maybe it just had the wrong label on it. But it's a really cool record, and it was recorded not far from me. I'm sitting about 3 miles from where that was recorded, which was I believe, the last performance on Led Zeppelin's initial tour for the first record. So that's one of the reasons why I have that record because it's based so locally to me. All right, so let's see. Iowa here. Yes, you have a great new records that haven't been available through some other bigger distributors. We use Alliance, Monastery, Red Eye. Any others? Yes, I use Alliance. I use Monasterio, Red Eye a little bit. You need to look into Ingram Entertainment. Ingram is a great distributor. They are on par with Alliance, as well as All Media Supply, which is AMS. These are record distributors that record stores buy from. The other one I would look into is 33 and a third. Shoot me a message. You can get me at info@ntxvinyl.com, and I'm happy to provide some contacts and some more information on that. Romero, would you know what the differences are in jazz music between wax time, jazz records, and acoustic sounds? Which are the more dependable, respectable names? I know that acoustic sounds very respectable. Those are typically great quality pressings. I'm not familiar with Jazz Images records. I am familiar with Wax Time. Wax Time is, and I'm generalizing, seen as a little bit more of a low end label for reissues. I do have some in my collection. They're not terrible, but they're not to that level of like audiophile quality like acoustic sound. So acoustic sound stuff is just great. I put it on the same level as MoFi, as far as production quality of artwork, packaging, and of course, sound. You should start selling mattresses. I don't know why I should start selling mattresses, but that sounds like a terrible idea. Yeah, Wax Time and Jazz Images are crap compared with the great acoustic sounds. I don't know if they're crap. Maybe if you compare them to acoustic sounds there, but acoustic sounds is way up here. And so most other reissue labels just aren't taking that time to get into that. First, just want to congratulate you on that new space in Hana Village. Going to go check it out this weekend. Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate that. I'm super excited about the new expansion we had in one of our shops. We just finished it last night. As soon as I'm done with this video, I've got to unbox a bunch of records that just came in, and then I got to get up there and finish up some signage and dot some I's and cross some T's on some things at the Hana Village shop. So, all right. So it looks like that is all the questions that are in here currently. If you've got any more questions about the topic of buying large collections, I'm happy to answer those. I'm also happy to answer any questions in general about the vinyl business, about NTX Vinyl, about me personally, about my collection, whatever you got while we're here. I've got plenty of time. So, all right. Secondly, from Jeff, how soon do you know if you'll stock a certain album after an artist announces new stuff? That's a good question. The answer is it's a complete crapshoot. Um, I would say the vast majority of the time, I have no idea. Something gets announced and the artists announce it, or maybe the label, which in most cases is what's happening when you see something announced on social media. It's the record label running those pages, or the email list, or whatever you see, or website for that matter. Sometimes I would say typically it takes a couple days, meaning if an album is announced and you see it on an artist's site on a Friday, by early the following week, I'll usually have gotten wind of it that I'm going to be able to access it, and what format I'm going to be able to access, and what variant, if they're doing an indie exclusive, or if there is no exclusive. So it typically takes a couple days. Sometimes it takes way longer. A good example of this is the Cure Wish, which is a long awaited reissue that was just announced. It was announced on the Cure site, and I bet it took about, if I remember correctly, 2 or 3 weeks before it popped up for record stores. Which, hey, that's just part of the game. The artists announce it first. They want to get the bulk of the sales direct, which I totally understand. I've been in a band. I understand that. It makes a lot of sense. Um, does it help independent record stores? No, it does not, because so many people have already pre-ordered it before I even have access to it, before I even know if I'm going to be access to it. So it's a tricky game, but it's just part of it. Typically, it's a couple days. Sometimes it can be longer. So, let's see. Octavio, hi. Do you like any band from Mexico? Any band from Mexico? I don't know if I listen to much from Mexico. Honestly, there's not my wheelhouse. What's your best deal ever when it comes to buying a collection? Oh, let's see. Best deal ever. I mean, yeah, the best collection I ever got, and it ended up being, and the reason why I vividly remember it is because I have many albums in my collection that I pulled from it because it was amazing. It was a collection of about 3,000 records, and I think I want to say I paid $5,000 or $6,000. It was one of those scenarios, like I mentioned earlier, where the guy kind of knew that he didn't have any choice. He had honestly already talked to another record store in town, a larger store, and they offered him $1 a record, 3,000. The records that were in this, even spot checking, I could tell that was a complete BS offer. So, which is why I offered double that, which at the time is all I could offer. It's not that again, it wasn't that I didn't know there was ability to make more money. It's that I didn't have the cash flow to offer $15,000, even if I wanted to. And he didn't, and the guy bought it from me. He didn't really expect that either. He was like, yeah, I just want to get more than what I was offered from this other store. And I kind of know how it goes. And so that was a really good one. I've still got lots of albums in my collection from that. And I did a big sale at one of my locations. It was called the Winter Drop. And there's a video where I went through it actually on the channel. It's back over a year, maybe almost 2 years ago. It was an amazing collection, mostly 70s and 80s stuff, but it went almost up to the 90s, which was really fun. So, I'm trying to buy a record I see on your Facebook pictures. How can I find out if you still have it? Message me. That's the best I can do, Lance. Called the store, no entry. Yeah, shoot me a message, info@ntxvinyl.com, or you can get me on like Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. I've got, let's see, George, I've got a copy of Double Fantasy that I got while working at a radio station in 1980. It's still sealed, not marked as promo. Any reason to keep it sealed? I mean, if you're looking to sell it, George, I would keep it sealed, because people like sealed records because they know they're presumed mint inside. It will certainly fetch more money. That particular album, Double Fantasy, I can't imagine it's going to be all that valuable, just because it's a really common album. Like, you can find it even in great condition for usually $10. So a sealed copy may go for 20 or 30. Depends on which pressing it is and all those types of things. We're generalizing, but yeah. All right, no problem, Jeff. We are sitting on a ton of 78s in old country, easy listening, oldies from buying collection. Any tips of getting rid of these that don't end up in the ground? So all I can do is tell you what I do. for all of my what I call filler, which is like genres that I don't collect or sell. This is big band, easy listening, classical, Tejano. There's a that's the main ones. There's more than that, but those are the main ones. I section them all off and just let them build up. Right now, I've probably got 15 boxes in storage, which is about 100 records each. So I've probably got 1,500 to 2,000 records. Um, I will offload those in two ways. The first way is I will contact people I know locally, because I know a lot of people locally who love digging through records, regardless of the genre, regardless of the condition, regardless of anything. They just like digging through records. Some of them they flip, some of them they keep, some of them they give away. So I will sell in bulk to those people. Normally it's by the box, and I'll do like 25 bucks a box or something like that, just to like clear them out. Meet me in my storage unit, 25 bucks a box, take them all. If that doesn't work, or it's taking too long, or I can't get anyone interested, then I just take them to Goodwill and I donate them. We've got a place, like a community center type place that takes donations by us, and I'll donate them all to there. I don't hardly ever throw anything in the trash as far as records are concerned. Let's see. When you get a high value record like a Led Zepp 2RL in nice shape, do you sell them in the store online? Love your content. Thank you, James. So I would say 90% of the pre-owned vinyl that I buy and then sell, I sell in my local shops. People ask me all the time, why don't I do more pre-owned vintage stuff online? And I don't do a lot of that because there's just not as much to go around, regardless of how many collections you buy, you just run through them quick. So inventory is always something I'm chasing. And the other thing is that condition is always so hard because grading is obviously very particular to the person who's doing it. So my VG plus might not be your VG plus. My, fair album or near mint album may differ from yours. So I typically anchor on selling pre-owned in my shop because people can actually hold it and look at it and inspect it for themselves, and that gives them the confidence to buy it. So that's why I don't do a lot. If it's collectible stuff like a Zepp RL, um, you know, uh, that will be Discogs. I do sell on Discogs because it's a worldwide marketplace, and so most of the stuff there is kind of oddball, weird pressings, or maybe high value stuff that I don't that either hasn't moved in my local shops or I don't think will move. And then sometimes I'll do eBay, some stuff like that. Again, just to move inventory. Um, and I try and do my best to keep customers apprised of when I do put stuff on those platforms because I do like selling to my customers versus just anybody. But the reality is there's a big world out there, and there's a lot of customers outside my local area, or even outside the United States, for that matter, of people I sell to. So I hope that answers a little bit. Romero, can leaving the shrink wrap on for a couple of years or so cause major warpage? It certainly can. I've had records that are sealed that the shrink wrap's just too tight and it starts to kind of pull together, and you can tell if you lay a record flat on the table and it has a little bit of a bowl to it, you can push down, flip it over on both sides and see if there's any bowl. That's the best way you can tell. There have been plenty of scenarios, actually some even very recently, where I opened up sealed albums, older pressings, not new stuff, just because it looked like it had a little warp. And I knew that if I sold it, whether it's locally or on Discogs or wherever, I wasn't going to be able to sell it rightfully without disclosing that. And the last thing I want to do is ship someone to somebody, they open it, and, oh, it's warped. I opened it and it's warped. I need a refund to deal with that. I'd rather just open it very carefully, let the shrink wrap breathe, and then hope that the record isn't warped. And then I sell it as obviously near mint because it's never been played and just open. And I actually notate that when I sell it usually too. I say, hey, this was a sealed album up until a week ago. I opened it to confirm the pressing and to confirm to make sure it wasn't warped. So it does happen though. David, do you ever look at the estate sales in your DFW area as a potential source for picking up some nice records in the wild? Great question, David. I used to. I used to be an estate sale guy for several years actually, but in recent years I have stopped. It's probably been 2 or 3 years since I've been doing a estate sale. Partially that's just because I'm very busy, but even more so than that is just because so many large companies took over estate sales, and they know vinyl is hot, and so generalizing, most of the estate sales I started walking into, even going back a couple years, and now I've talked to plenty of people who still do it, who tell me, yeah, you'll go in and all of the vinyl is marked at $10 a piece. And some of it's complete trash and some of it's real collectible. So you can still find stuff. For me, I'm looking to buy in bulk. And that's usually not the way that you're going to buy a collection in bulk unless you get ahead of it, unless you can talk to the person who's actually managing the estate beforehand. But like I said, most of the time it's these bigger companies who take over these estate sales and they come in and they price up everything and they put all the records at a usually ridiculous price based on what it is. And so they're never going to sell them in bulk. They're looking to piece them out. So I haven't done a lot of estate sales because of the way that industry's kind of evolved. Baba Booey, what does GI stand for? It is a nickname that my father gave me when I was a kid for playing with GI Joes. You can't make this shit up. When ordering from your distributor, do you have a system on how many of a certain record you order? Is it just all a guessing game? Nick, that is a fantastic question. I will tell you, one of the things I never anticipated getting into this business, because I've never been in retail. If you've been in retail, this this is probably like, common knowledge, but for me, I never really realized that it's like a full-time job just being a buyer. That's why a buyer is actually a job at retail companies. You've got to buy a lot of product. So I have evolved and obviously learned a lot over the years so that I'm guessing less, but there is still a certain guess to everything you do. And what I mean by that is I curate everything. If you've seen my vinyl for sale show on YouTube, um, though each of those sales, which is about a crate, sometimes crate and a half of records. So let's say it's 75 records, somewhere between 50 and 75 or something. It takes me usually 2 to 3 weeks to buy all that because I could go to distributors right now and just place an order for a bunch of stuff, but it's not stuff I'm really confident in selling because I don't know if it'll move. Like I don't want to buy stuff just for the sake of having it. I want to provide really good curated stuff that I believe in and want to sell. And then I also have to be able to get the right volume of it. So if I can only get 2 copies of something, well, that doesn't help anybody because then if I put it in one of my vinyl for sale shows, the first 2 people are grab it, and the next 12 people who wanted a copy are all disappointed. So I try not to put stuff in there that's too limited. At the same time, I also have to keep my shops in mind. And as I've expanded from one and now two and now 3 shops, and now a really great YouTube selling show, Vinyl for Sale. So now I have to accommodate for kind of all of those. How do I make sure I have enough in for my customers who watch the show on YouTube and my other social channels, as well as the people who are buying from me locally? So it's hard, man, and it takes a lot of time. I used to, just kind of place one order a week from usually like one main distributor, and that would be the bulk of what I do. Now I order, I would say, 3 to 5 orders a week, and it's from 8 different distributors, depending on what's in stock, depending on what they have, what I'm looking to do, what I'm curating at the time, what I already have versus what I need. And so much of it just comes down to honestly a gut feeling of what you think is going to move. Sometimes I'll buy 10 of an album or 20 of an album, and then like 3 people will buy it in the sale. I'm like, oh man, I could have swore that one was going to sell out. So sometimes you guess wrong, but you just have to go off your gut and your knowledge and your experience, and kind of it all plays into that curation. But don't get me wrong, it's all fun and shit. Like I love doing it. The ability to go on and look through catalogs of records and find stuff that's available that you haven't seen or you haven't heard or you're excited to offer to people. It's super fun, and it's a lot of work, but it's super fun. It's one of the things I enjoy about doing this on a regular basis. So all right, Armin Zink. Acquiring a large collection to get good vinyl stuff will surely work in the US or UK. In Germany, you have a very high risk to get a collection of full of German Schlager or brass music. Too risky for me. I get it, man. I've had plenty of collections where there's too much filler and there's just not a lot of stuff. You just got to do your due diligence. I I almost insist at this point when someone contacts me and says, "Hey, I've got some records to sell." My response almost always is, "How many? And can you send pictures?" Before I do anything else. Because if they say, because sometimes I'll get an email or whatever, a voicemail, they call the shop, and I've got a ton of records to sell. Can you call me back? I really need to get rid of these records. I call them back, and I'm like, "Well, what do you got?" "Oh, I got a ton of classic rock and country." "Okay, can you tell me more?" on and on and on. It turns out they've got like 20 records, which is like totally cool. To them, that's a lot of records. It was like taking up a whole cabinet. To me, I'm like, it's not worth my time to drive an hour to meet you to buy 20 records, right? And so I try and very quickly, like I mentioned in the video, just be as honest and transparent and straightforward with people. And I say, how many records do you have? Do you know what genre? Can you tell me anything about condition? And I'm not asking them to tell me if they're VG plus or near mint. I'm just telling you, I'm just asking them, can you tell if they're all water damaged? Are they all warped? Have they been sitting in a garage or an attic? Like, try and get some basics out of the way. And that helps because then what that means is I don't end up in these scenarios where I'm looking at a whole bunch of records I don't care about and I've already wasted my time and I've wasted their time. Like that's what I tell everybody. It's like I don't want to waste your time. I don't waste my time. So you can give me a little bit of an idea of what's there and then maybe snap some photos. I always ask for photos. Everyone's got a damn camera, so it's not hard. Hey, just send me some examples. I'm not expecting you to take a photo of 50 albums or 100 albums. Send me some examples, lay a few out on the floor. That way I've got an idea of what's there. Typically, not always, you can tell by a few photos if it's going to be worth it. Like, I see this, I see that. Okay, those are cool because I can tell if they've got Led Zeppelin albums or they've got Beatles albums. Maybe it's usually a pretty good indicator that they're going to have some other artists like that. Not always, but all you can do is go off of those indicators. So, Romero, is there any records you've been trying to find for years that you still haven't found? Yeah, there's tons of records I haven't found. I've had a running list. So I use Discogs. I assume you know that. And my want list on Discogs is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of albums. I don't keep up to date with it as much as I need to. I should, but there's lots of stuff that I've never seen in the wild. Lots of stuff that I will love to have. It's just way high end, and I don't have the budget to spend that much for a record anymore. Like I used to say I would never spend more than $100 on a record, which at that time even sounded crazy. I've done that now just a handful of times, but not that often. I've got a lot of records, so it's getting to that point for me where my collection is it's pretty much one in, one out. What I mean by that, if I'm going to buy a record or I'm going to keep a record that I acquire and it's going to go on my shelf, I got to pull one out and sell it. I don't always do that, but I'm trying real hard. It's not easy to let go. James, curious about what percentage of your profit is new versus used? Seems like desirable used records are harder and harder to come by. Great question. The balance of pre-owned versus new vinyl is very tricky. When I started out, I was only carrying pre-owned vinyl. That's all I had. I didn't even think about, new vinyl. But then I started dipping my toe in and realizing that, man, there's a market for this. People are buying it. And I knew that because I buy new records. But for my specific scenario, I'm out in the suburbs. So I was like, I don't know if this is going to work as far as having a record store way out here. I'm not in an artsy district. There's no foot traffic. It's me sending people. So I was very skeptical. But from the very beginning, it worked. People were all over buying new records. This was pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, where we are now, it's obviously a completely different ballgame because there are simply so many new collectors and so many revitalized collectors because of that 2+ years at home we all had, right? So percentage of profit, new versus used, is hard to say off the top of my head. I could pull up my QuickBooks and start digging into reports, which I'm not going to do, but it's probably half and half. So you're right. Pre-owned stuff is much harder to find these days, and obviously exponentially harder than new vinyl. New vinyl, you can, if you have, a business set up, you can get in touch with distributors, and you can push a button, and you can order whatever the hell you want. It's on demand records, right? That's new product. That's any retail business. Pre-owned, vintage, whatever you want to call it, used. I can't push a button and get it. So you can't scale a business off of just pre-owned records. At least I can't. So you've got to be mindful of that, which again is one of the reasons why I don't sell a lot of pre-owned online, just because I don't have enough of it. I need to stock my shops with pre-owned vinyl versus selling a lot of it online and shipping it all over the country and the nation, in the world. So it's pretty much split. The margins are obviously typically a lot better on pre-owned records because you can buy for a couple dollars in some cases, and make 5x, make 10x, which is amazing. At the same time, that's one record, you know? That's great. Work goes into every single record as far as grading and pricing and sleeving and then getting it and selling it, right? Way different than new records where I can order 20 of them. If I know they're going to sell, maybe I'm only making 5, 8, $10 on each of those. Sometimes less than that. Sometimes you make 3 or 4 bucks on a record on a new vinyl that sells. But if you can sell all 20, then you got something. If you've got a customer base that'll support some volume, it's all new vinyl is all about volume. You've got to get to a point where it makes sense because if you're just selling a few here and there, again, the margins aren't good enough for that to sustain and roll into like a real scalable business, at least not from my point of view. So, TJ, do you know any good sites to determine how many copies of a vinyl were made? Also, general rules for rating condition. No, there are no sites that indicate how many copies of a vinyl were made because, and again, I'm generalizing. Obviously, take out anything limited edition and numbered. Obviously, if it doesn't have a number on it, labels, pressing plants, artists, they do not disclose in most cases how many are pressed. So you have no idea. The stores don't know. The distributors don't even know. The only people who know are the label who places the order with the pressing plant. And most times they are, it's a little iffy these days because production is so backed up still. But I would say, in normal times, they'll place an order for, let's say, 5,000 records. But depending on how quickly those sell, they already have pre-booked time to do a repress. So they may press 5,000 and go, hey, if X number sell within this period, let's go ahead and trigger another 5,000. You know, but we don't know what those numbers are. That could be 1,000, that could be 10,000. So those are never disclosed, unfortunately. It would be amazing if they were. It would probably create even more chaos in this industry, honestly. General rules for rating condition. I mean, condition is in the eye of the beholder. Like I grade different than any other record store is going to grade. I'm sure there's some similarities and some commonalities, but some people grade really strict. Some people grade really loose. Some people don't care about the jacket at all. They're like, as long as it plays great. Like, so it's grading is really hard. And again, that's why I don't sell pre-owned online all that much because people need to be able to hold a record, look at the actual record and inspect it themselves to make a decision if my price is in line with the way they see the condition of that album. John Kinney, do you think Dave Matthews Band before these crowded streets will ever get a reissue? Can't find one under 500. My gut says yes, John. I would be shocked if it's not. Just be patient. It'll happen someday. I mean, I don't know this for sure, but most albums by most large popular artists that artists and labels know will sell, they're going to get repressed because why would they not? They know they can sell more. The only way it typically doesn't ever happen in that scenarios is if there's legalities that tie it up from a copyright standpoint or from an ownership standpoint, or if the band is no longer around and the label's no longer around, like obscure stuff like that. But with Dave Matthews Band, it's a huge artist, still active, massive fan base. I'd be shocked if that album doesn't get repressed. So just be patient. That'd be my advice. It has to be more difficult to find quality used as more people collect and as less inclined to sell. Yeah, it absolutely is. Um, I would say, yeah, you're right. It's harder and harder. The more people get in on it, the more people who are collecting, the more people are looking for it. It drives up the value, makes it more difficult to buy and sell. Like there's a lot of things. So yeah, that's just a part of the hobby evolving. I will say, in the past 6 months, I've been well pleasantly surprised and a little bit shocked of how many people are selling records. But the economy, I believe, has a huge part in that. When gas prices went crazy in the U.S. and everything else, inflation wise, I think that definitely does play a part into people deciding to part with their collections. The other thing I think, and I've been told this firsthand by a handful of people, is that the pandemic, so many people were at home. The whole work from home thing, which I've been doing my whole life, that became a reality for so many people, which meant they were at home, so they could actually spend time with their records, which is a big part of it. And then, now here we are. A lot of people are having to go back to the office, you know, and they're not spending as much time with their records. So they're like, all these records just sitting here. Maybe I should offload some of them and, spend that money elsewhere. So I think that's a definite thing as well. Um, Any chance for a reissue of the Beatles mono box? No idea, Armin. That would be amazing. I would love to own that one myself. I don't know if they're ever going to reissue that. They could. There's always Beatles stuff in the works. I heard Revolver's coming next as far as a remaster, which is going to be super fun. Thank you so much for your great answers here. No worries. How do you stay on top of upcoming reissues? Just dig through the pre-order list from distributors. I find the back order function sort of useless. I will disagree with you there in regards to the back order function. So this is in the weeds for anybody who's watching. But as far as record store owners are concerned, when you go to order new vinyl from a distributor, there's stuff that's in stock, there's stuff that's out of stock and now on back order, and then there's upcoming pre-order releases, right? So yes, I get all the emails from all the different distributors every single week, but they come in daily of all the new stuff that's coming. Maybe it's stuff that's coming out that week. Maybe it's stuff that's just announced, not coming out for 6 months. So keeping up on that stuff is very critical. You've got to place your pre-books, as they call them. So a new album is announced, and I know, man, I would love to get 50 copies of that. If I pre-book 50 copies with one distributor and just hope that that's going to fill, I'm fooling myself. Most likely these days, if it's a hot title, I'll pre-book with 3 or 4 different distributors, smaller amounts, in hopes to accumulate a larger order. That's one of the things I've learned to do, because if you depend just on one, you can get bit. Because sometimes distributors just get screwed, just like stores, and they don't get any, or they get terrible allocations of even a bigger release. So got to be careful there. Um, Let's see. I recently started buying collections. I now have about 2,000 albums. What suggestions do you have for getting organized to sell online and at flea markets? That's a great question. Um, get everything alphabetized, obviously. You got to get I mean, it's going to take months, man. You're going to be pricing records. I remember the first pop up I did when I started all this. I did a little pop up sale in my garage, which is essentially the same as a flea market. And yeah, I priced records for, I think, 3, 4 months straight. All I did, I had crates all over my damn house. My wife thought I was crazy, because at this point, this wasn't even a business; it was just for fun. So yeah, just be ready to put in the time. Get everything as organized by genre and alphabetically as possible, because that's going to make it easier on your buyers. Um, and then I would say, depending on what your outlook is, price accordingly. I know when I started out pricing, I was pricing way lower than I probably should have, just because I was like, hey, I just want to see if people will buy this, period. Plus, I knew it would create some customer loyalty. My prices have come up a little bit because the market has come up, but in general, I remember starting out with that kind of mentality: is, hey, I just want to move some product and meet some people, and engage in the community and see if this thing will work. So that's maybe a small tip, is to price uh, you know, a little more friendly up front, I would say, maybe. I have my Beatles on Apple label. Are they worth anything? It's hard to tell, Joseph. There's a million different pressings of every Beatles record, Apple label included. So that's what Discogs is for. You got to go to Discogs. You got to figure out which pressing it is, which country it comes from, and that will at least point you in the right direction of trying to determine value. I will say the Beatles and Elvis and Michael Jackson, huge artists, millions, multi millions of all of those artists, especially their most popular albums, were pressed. That means everybody had them. That means they're everywhere, and they are what I would call are common. Does that mean they're not valuable? Not necessarily. There are certainly Beatles albums, Elvis albums, whatever, that are valuable, but they are the anomaly, because the vast majority of the albums were pressed in the many, many millions. So they're everywhere. So very common question, though. I walk into scenarios all the time with people who are looking to sell records, and they're like, I've got these Beatles records, like these ones right here. Like, can you tell me what these are worth? And it's like, just like normal 5, 10, $15 albums, which are great, but they're not what they thought they were just because they were the Beatles, right? Happens all the time. What's the advantage of having multiple smaller locations in your current model versus having everything under one roof, like a traditional brick and mortar? Great question, concert buddy. Advantages. The main advantage of me not having a brick and mortar store where I have to be there is that I can be here right now. I don't have to be there. Like, I'm at this point in my life personally where I don't want to be a guy behind the counter for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, because that's what it takes to own a record store, to own a standalone brick and mortar location. I also don't want the overhead of serious rent in a retail environment, insurance, utilities, employees, all that stuff adds up on top of the fact that, I don't want to be chained to that store. So my model, which I'm developing, is to have these satellite local locations, like I have, which are smaller and they're inside of like boutique marketplaces. I'm not physically there, but I can stop by on a weekly basis and restock and clean up and all those types of things. And then I sell a ton online and I do all the YouTube stuff. So for me, it's a cool model that I'm kind of developing in real time. I didn't anticipate doing it this way. I didn't plan it. I didn't say, here's what I'm going to do. It's just kind of evolved into this. And I've come to realize over time that I don't want to be that guy behind the counter stuck there. At least not now. Maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years. I don't know. But for right now, I love the flexibility of what I do and having the satellite locations physically, as well as the online presence and everything in between. So thank you for the question though. I get asked all the time, when are you gonna open a real store? When are you gonna open a real store? I'm like, I'm not opening a real store. I don't want that. Like, I don't want to be stuck behind that counter. It'd be cool. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of benefits to it. Of course, meeting people and getting to handle even more records all day, fantastic. But the realities of that are just not what I need right now. So all right, I'll take a couple more. We're running up on an hour. This has been amazing. Thank you all so much for participating. I had no idea. I'm gonna have to do this live stream stuff more often. All right, couple more questions. Ramiro, another good question. Does 180 gram, 200 gram records drastically reduce warpage in the long run, or is it just a trend? That's a hard one. I haven't done any studies here. Obviously, a 180-gram record or certainly a 200-gram record are more durable. Like, and you would think there would be less warpage, although these days that's not necessarily the case because quality control and the volume and demand that is, happening at pressing plants does not help scenarios. They don't let records cool long enough, which is what happens most of the time when they warp, is because they're not giving the time for them to set properly. Um, does it matter if it's 180 versus 140 gram? Probably not. It's whether or not the pressing plant's doing their job correctly. But as a generalization, 180 and certainly 200 gram, yes, they're going to be more durable over time. And you would think there would be a little less warpage, but it really doesn't have to do with that. Not from my experience. Facebook and Instagram have been huge awareness drivers for our local shop. What kind of posts work best for sales? Oh man, good question. I have experimented on not every platform, but tons of platforms, and it really differs. Like, there are different audiences on different platforms: Facebook versus Instagram versus YouTube, TikTok, Amazon, eBay, Discogs, my own site. I sell on all of them, or at least I'm planning to sell on all of them someday. I'm still developing some of them. It really comes down to your audience, what you sell, and how and that connection. Meaning, if you've got a huge following on Instagram and they know you as being someone who only deals in hip hop, well, that may be the place for you. It varies for everybody. So you just got to kind of find your niche. My advice would be to experiment. Don't feel like you're boxed in. There is 100 different ways to sell a record, 100 different places to sell a record. So you got to find the avenue that's right for you. Find the sales channel. I've actually got a note on my phone that's just called sales channels, and it's this freaking long with all the different places. So when I have a record, I'm like, where should I sell this record? Where should it go? Will it sell faster and for a higher amount on Discogs versus eBay versus my local shop versus Instagram? There's all these different options, right? Which is an amazing thing. Social media is an awful thing for most of society, but for small businesses, like you mentioned, game changer. All right. How do you get away with using your NTX logo as far as copyright issues? Just curious how that works. Do they not care? I think it's cool. I've actually gotten this question recently. So I do, like, Grateful Dead. I've got my Dallas Mavericks logo. I do a Nine Inch Nails one. I do stickers for all the different bands. They're all in very, very low quantities, and these entities don't care. Like, yeah, they could absolutely send me a cease and desist, or they could sue me for the pennies I make off this stuff. All the stickers I just give away for free. The shirts I sell them for not very much, and I do really low runs, so I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, they could absolutely stop me at any point. Inside baseball. Sorry, I was going to say, do you do back orders work for you? How do you keep track of stuff that's out of stock? Yeah, sorry, I didn't address the back order thing. Back orders, absolutely, you have to do it. Back order everything. I have notifications set up, and I make a point to go through once a week. I should at least go through and back order stuff because depending on the distributor, some back orders expire. And what I mean by that is um, Nine Inch Nails, the downward spiral. I'm just trying to think of something that's out of stock. It hasn't been pressed recently at all, to my knowledge. And I may back order that at a specific distributor, but after 30 days, my back order expires. And then if it gets repressed, then I miss them because all the other stores have a back order. So you got to have back orders across several distributors. Some distributors don't expire your back orders and they keep them forever. So whenever it finally comes in, I'll get it. Some expire after 30, 60 days. So you just have to play that game. But yeah, these days, if you're not pre-booking and back ordering records, you're at a huge disadvantage because a lot of times when something gets pressed and becomes available to stores from a distributor, if you don't have it back ordered, you won't get any because they're all eaten up by back orders because every store's got them back ordered. So you'll never see that product. All right. Ramiro, do you have any thoughts on listening to vinyl on the Klipsch reference RP? I'm not familiar with those Klipsch. I know Klipsch is a great brand. My subwoofer is Klipsch. I'm assuming their bookshelf speakers are probably great, but I don't know. I've never heard of them. Are you going to bring back the weekly unboxing videos? Thank you for the question, Nick. I don't know. I love to do the unboxing videos. The vinyl for sale episodes kind of replace those because honestly, everything that I'm unboxing, a lot of it ends up in those sales because I start with my vinyl for sale. So it's tough because I would do here's the issue. Here's the issue with unboxing. I unbox it all, whether I do it live or whether I do it in a pre-recorded video. And then undoubtedly what happens? Everyone says, I want to copy that. I want to copy that. I want to copy that. Where can I buy that? Can I get a copy? How much is this? And it creates all this communication that I have to deal with. People message on any social platform. People comment on social platforms. People email. People go to the website and look for it and they can't find it yet because it's not updated because I just unboxed it. So there's all these issues. When I started doing the unboxings, it was super fun, and I do still like it. It's very cool to open up boxes and show stuff. It's like Christmas, but it creates all of this work that I've tried to figure out ways to circumvent. In the end, the vinyl for sale, so it's kind of what that has become. You just don't see me unboxing it, but it's essentially the same thing. So a couple more, and then I'm going to sign off because we've been here an hour. But this is amazing. 48 people on. How do you curate your collection? I mostly keep records where I enjoy almost every song, all killer, no filler. I'm pretty much the same way. I don't have a lot of filler. I go through every couple months probably and weed out. And I mentioned earlier of anything that I finally have decided, you know what, I'm never going to listen to this, or I don't need 3 copies of this, or whatever it may be. And then, like I said earlier, I'm at that point now. You can see there's not too many gaps left in my collection. There's a few, but I'm pretty much one in, one out. So I'm on the path to no filler at all because eventually it's all going to be pulled out. Eventually I want it to be very minimal duplicates and very minimal filler and only stuff I really love, like you said, from front to back. So do you have high-end level gear to listen to your vinyl? Define high end. To me it's high end. I think my turntable was $2,500. That's pretty high, or maybe it wasn't even that. Maybe it's 2,000 or something. Pretty high end turntable for me personally. My amplifier, my preamp, my speakers, and my sub. If I added all that up, what I paid or what I would have paid, some of it was gifted to me. It's a couple $1,000s. So no, not audiophile quality. In fact, I post pictures in my listening room tour, and people flag me out, give me shit all the time. Like, oh, you should have a better system. Why do you got all those records and you don't play them on? They sound like crap on what you have. I'm like, yeah, no, they sound great, which is why I have the system. If my system didn't sound great to me, then I would upgrade my system, but I'm very happy with where I'm at. So, if we were to see a CD revival and vinyl regression, would you rebrand NTX CDs? No, I would not, because I don't like CDs. They bore the hell out of me. They're plastic. They feel cheap. You stick them in a thing that slides in. You can't see it. The artwork's tiny. These are all the reasons why I collect records, because they're not CDs. So no, I won't go that route. And I don't stock any CDs in my shop. Believe me, I have the opportunity to buy a lot of CDs, and I normally just pass it up because there's not a lot of, they're getting it. I get it. They're coming back. They really are. But it's just not for me. I just do what I love. So do you have an OG or MoFi copy of Nirvana Nevermind in your collection? Yes, I have an OG copy. It's a club copy. Let's see if I can grab it without even getting up. Maybe. Hold on. I'm gonna have to get up. It's right here though. Yeah, here's my club copy of Nevermind. This is an original from '91. It's got a little wear on it, but it's a nice pressing. It's there's my original Nevermind. I do not have the MoFi. I would love it, but unfortunately, it's way out of my reach at this point. I mean, I haven't seen a MoFi copy of Nevermind go for less than 300-400, and typically they go for even way more than that. So I'm happy with my original club press, and then I've got a nice reissue as well. So there you go. All right, we are over an hour. I've got 44 people on. Does anyone else have any questions? Otherwise, I gotta go unpack some records, and I'm not gonna film it because then people just ask to buy it, and then I have to deal with a whole bunch of communication. So, which I typically love, but it's hard in those scenarios. So, if you guys like the live format, I'll do this more. I really appreciate all the questions. This has just been phenomenal. I literally thought there'd be like 5 or 10 people on this. So the fact that there's still 46 people tuned in, um, I will have to do this again. Maybe we'll do this type of follow up thing on any of the videos I post that get a decent reaction. We can use those as starting points for a topic to do a live stream kind of Q&A. But then I'm happy to just get on and do live Q&A in general. We need to do one. We need to do one based on more around music. Just like can pull stuff out and talk about it. That would be cool too. So really appreciate you guys. As always, Labor Day weekend's coming up, so I don't think I have any videos dropping over the next couple of days over the holidays, but we'll kick back up next week. I do have an amazing curated set of stuff for the next vinyl for sale video that's coming, so I'm excited about that one. That will be right after the Labor Day holiday. All right, so thank you all again. Appreciate all the questions, and we'll see you again next time. I'll make sure and do this live stuff more often. So really appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.